Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's Lunch and Learn session. Today is things are a little different from our usual set of topics. We usually talk about digital accessibility, things that are happening in training, so on and so forth. But today we're with Pete Preston and the team at um, Everything AI, and we want to know a little bit about how adopting AI into our workflows is supposed to make it easy for us, right? Not just what we see um, everyone doing nowadays, where pretty much every job role has some aspects that can be some workflows that can be optimized with a little bit of automation. So I'm here with Pete Preston, Darren, and we have Keith Copeland who will be speaking, and we have Flavio and myself from Public Training who will be keeping tabs on the chat and answering your, or at least handling your queries and handing it over to these guys to take it forward from there. Now, just a reminder, if you've been with us before, you know that during the presentation itself, you may not be able to unmute yourselves or turn on video, but when we have our Q&A session toward the end, we do have, of course, that ability. So you should be able to have a discussion on any topics that you like to discuss relevant to today's presentation. Yep. I'm just going to hand over to you, Pete, and you can take it from there.
Excellent. All right, Rajiv, thank you so much. And hello, everyone. Thanks all for coming in to kind of catch up on what's the state of play of generative AI, especially LLMs. But we're going to go in a little bit further to kind of unpack pretty much the aspects, and remove some preconceptions and then focus us into how to really understand what the nuances and the differences are. As far as most people know, it's just one big block, but really it's pretty nuanced, but so it helps to be able to see what is what, So for today, we're going into where we're using tooling to see how you can, maybe use products that are out there already, or look to build your own products, and how to go about that, integrations and also all the evals regarding all the things you'll do. There'll be risks, there'll be rewards. So all these are things we're going to look into today and just, slowly unpack them. And at the end, we're going to demo a product, use a product interface, and also our own platform where you can see is a tooling hub. For instance, some people know maybe 10, 20, 30 Gen AI models and tools. On our platform, we have about 18,000 of these categorized in easy chunks. So to give you context of this, we have over 300 categories of products on the website. Okay, so I'm going to start now. So let's go. Not going present. Okay, so yeah, so as you know, if we're talking about generative AI, it's important to kind of understand what it is. We all have seen the output. It's nearly 3 years now of whereby the actual interest for Gen AI came on with ChatGPT November 30th, 2022. This was done by OpenAI. They're by no means the first people onto the scene, but they came up with really top-notch marketing, and then they were able to introduce this inference whereby for the first time folk were able to see or interact with the models that they kind of been hearing about. So that's with the introduction of the chat version of the GPT models. They've had like 2 or 3 iterations going forward. But it's really, I mean, what a time to be alive. It's really amazing where we're seeing now, whereby as opposed to you looking at learning how to code and talk to the computers can now learn, the computers learning how you can talk, how you talk and how you can converse. So that's called natural language processing, to be able to understand English and pretty much any language so far. It's really remarkable how far they've come with the models that have changed. So I like to clarify so that folk understand that AI has been with us for such a long time, but it's been pretty much under the hood, more like so we call it traditional AI, narrow AI, whereby it's really for making things that are more precise, decision making, predictions, where you can set, specific rules and also techniques, going forward. But with Gen AI, it's a different kind of interactions altogether. It's all about you training and the machine's learning. So obviously, most of you have heard of a machine learning, and that's exactly what it is. Because the use cases whereby you have to programmatically keep asking the machine to do things, what if you can train the machines over using data, a large amount of data, really, really large amount of data. We'll come into how big this data could be, so you can understand some of this later. So one of the things you can use that for is for like spam filtering, image recognition, probably one of the biggest ones, image recognition, whereby in 2012 they had AlexNet. So AlexNet is one of the kind of catalyst or serendipity moment whereby the ecosystem started to take note, and this was in 2012, of the possibilities of what's happened, what can happen. You used to systems like personal recommendation on algorithms like on YouTube. You also got these on Netflix and stuff. You can do segmentations where you're using it for things like HubSpot, lots of tools, But with Gen AI, it's come in a different way whereby it's now, instead of you programmatically making things happen, creating rules and all that, all you do is present a large amount of data and train this data. Now, this comes at a cost, but the rewards as well are pretty huge. And with the adoption currently of how whereby Gen AI is affecting or appending pretty much every part of pretty much any industry, you can attest to the fact that its uses and its positive sides are possibly maybe larger than the negative sides, and it does have negative sides. Okay, so but what you can use it for is code generations. So I've used it for generating codes to build like small landing pages, and it's been pretty spot on. Application testing, UI elements for web, and one of the key things is scaling and also speed. These are, for me, pretty much, the two key things that you can get from Gen AI. There are various kinds of AI. There's narrow AI, super AI, Gen AI, as we have here, and they're all based into different shapes of the architecture itself. So it could be either by functionality or capabilities. So Gen AI refers to algorithms that can generate new content such as text, image based on training data. So when ChatGPT came on, it created or showcased a way whereby you can not doing anything different, pretty much the same thing, but you now have a different way of getting the output. So input output becomes different. So whereby if you're using like maybe Photoshop previously to create maybe a poster or graphic sets, now instead of you having to work at it, you can really just basically speak into it, text into it, use an image, and the output that comes out on the other side could be anything depending on the model, the foundation, the model that you're actually using. So it could come out as an image, music, a book, you can write a full book, with the LLMs. So they're really, really powerful, so whilst they mimic the human creativity and how humans think. This came about from many, many, many years ago. In fact, nearly the first instances of where scientists are thinking, what if we can actually get the machines to think and do like humans is nearly or maybe just over 100 years ago, 1922. Yeah, 100 years ago. So it's not new, but it's taken us time to get to where it is. So in that kind of instance, you can see that this is not going to go anywhere. It's really going to stay. So they're referred to as large language models because they're really, really, really large. It takes a huge amount of data to get into this place where you can do all the training and stuff, So when we say, for instance, a gigabyte of text file can store about 178 million words. Now, some of those large language models are trained on petabytes of data. And 1 petabyte of data is 1 million gigabyte. So when they say large language models, they really, really mean that, that's kind of what it is. But it's in a simple architecture as well, whereby for understanding, there is no large language models without data. So underlying all of this is data. The very first thing is data. So the reason why it's been slow coming to this period is that traditionally, we haven't had enough data to be able to give precise results. So even like things like the ELIZA model, this is a 1966. It would do something, but after the second query, it starts to unravel. And then you had kind of each time they would reiterate in this, they would find out what else to go. So then they move on to neural networks. So recurrent neural networks, this must be about around 1972 onward. And it was about this time that the actual models could effectively predict the next word without any programming. So it was a real breakthrough. But again, it took a while for them to do that because it was working in a single way architecture compared to whereby you have it in a way where it's going in multiple directions. And up to whereby they had in the 2000s, early 2000s, whereby the interest in machine learning and AI started picking up. It was quite slow until it got to 2012. It got to 2012, whereby they had AlexNet. So now, why the big push into AI? Again, one of them would be data management. We need to be able to harness all of these things and be able to use them. Previously, before that, it was like big data. So big data came. Now, what do you do with this data? So the architecture, the models all came in a way that they can make better use of what we have. Now, for an LLM, it's really just three things: data, and we've talked about how large this data is, and also the architecture of the data, which is really just the neural network. So a neural network is the mimicking of the human neural mind, so that the machines can try to simulate or mimic how the human mind works. So the architecture is based on the neural network. But for GPTs, which is where ChatGPT comes in with the large language models. This architecture are called transformers. Now, they didn't have this previously until a breakthrough paper that came out of Google DeepMind. Now, to be honest, they probably, I think, as an aside, didn't really realize what they'd come up with. And this all came out in the in the scientific paper called Attention is All You Need. So what they found there are this models called transformers. The transformers are, they're designed to understand kind of the context of each word, but in relationship to every other word. So it allows the model to build a more comprehensive understanding and kind of on the sentence structure of the data. And also by this training, it became very good at meaning of words and in context learning. So it became more dependable in its predictions. Okay, so and that takes us down to training. So training is a lot, so training is where the model learns to predict the next sentences, and things like, so for instance, if you look at maybe your mobile phone, it would try to predict the word. But it would only do this one word at a time. Whereas an LLM, because they've been trained to do one word, next word, after word, with the size of what they are and a lot of training, they've become really good at actually being able to put out a large amount of kind of scaffolding around your query. So if you say the sky is, it starts from something random, like the sky is bug, but because of its training, in nanoseconds, it'll work out the next word is the sky is blue. So if you want to use it to write maybe a story, it would use the same training, but working quicker, be able to give you a large amount of stories. Now, this would lead us to where you might have a model that's hallucinating. Hallucination is whereby, even though the data is not in the model's training, it would still try to give you some answer. It's the same way whereby maybe a child, human child would work. If you ask it something it does not know, as far as the child is concerned, they're not lying. They're just giving you an answer. It's up to you to figure out how you deal with this answer. But we call it hallucination. Where we call it hallucination, currently, they're actually working on the fact that if you're in the creative field, hallucination is good because it gives you the ability to actually find new areas that you can work into. So there's that, but the whole idea is that the model is all about training and working accurately. So under the hood is just data, clever algorithms and architectures, and a lot of training using heavy GPUs and a lot of capital to ensure that these models are. So in terms of capital, you probably have heard of NVIDIA. NVIDIA sunk so much money into this because from 2012, they saw the capabilities of the LLMs and they wanted to go all in for autonomous vehicles. So they put everything they had, they changed their business model and focused fully on GPUs. So they started building these GPUs. So they became the biggest GPUs provider. And this is what pretty much everybody uses right now, from Toyota, Mercedes, all the OpenAI, Anthropic. So that's what they use coming out right now. Okay, this is not going. Okay. So what is the significance of AI into this landscape, in terms of, from a industry point of view? Again, previously I said it's speed, but it's also sort of enhancing your decision-making process. So it's a decision science provision whereby you now have more informed data to use to back your actions, your business predictions, where you put your money in. So with this, traditional business models have been changed, completely transformed when they see the capacity of what you can do with the AI tools, so it became kind of essential. So if you see where you're hearing about AI every single place you go, is because nobody wants to be left behind. Now, how do you deal with your AIs? A lot of the architecture is built on the foundation models, and the foundation models are the ones that you probably do, like OpenAI, OpenAI's ChatGPT, Llama, Claude from Anthropic, and recently you've got DeepSeek, you've got Quen, but all these are built, under a different architecture, which is like Tensor and PyTorch, that's served for another day, and a lot of APIs to make all these things happen, so, but also what that does with the APIs and things is it can lead to things like fine tuning. So if the models themselves are there, you're able to take what they have. Instead of you building yours, you can take what they have and use the data specifically for a clear task. So for instance, if you want to maybe do something for like a pizza delivery, you can create your own model that will be able to be a chatbot interface that will deal with your clients as if it's a human over a period of time with lots of training. But you also would need to build all the necessary infrastructures, marketing to get into that. There are many people who would just go into AI because everyone else is using. That's not what we recommend. We recommend that you do a proper analytical study of what it is, why you should be using it, and how that affects your business. So the first thing to do is to identify your business needs. It's important to see your business as a conveyor belt, task-based, even though it's not in a conveyor belt format. It is pretty much an assembly where each people have their own roles and things they do, and you see what you can do with those processes. So in this regard, we'll involve where you're analyzing all the processes, customer service, all the touch points and interactions. So from end to end is what you really want to look at and try to break them into, so the workflows or jobs will be broken down into tasks, and then see what's able to be automated. Always a good thing, establishing clear goals. So how does this AI align with your overall business objectives? So several companies have found this to be so effective that unethically they've fired maybe 20-30% of their staff because they realized that this architecture, this technology could do a lot of the work that the team that they had previously were doing. There's a walk back into that later, which I'll talk on to later on, how whereby ethics and considerations kick in. Folk are now changing the dynamics of how actually they should see this amazing tool and technology. So one of the things to do when you're establishing your goals is to really just check and see what your time you're spending, the amount you're spending, the money you're spending, how much difference, what's the difference in before you implement this and after. That includes things like training. So if the difference you find is a lot, then yes. But if it's negligible or next to none, don't just get AI for getting AI's sake. We've actually developed a tool called AI ROI, where you can plug in your metrics and it will tell you how to get to an AI program training system, given your workflow, and also predict how much you'll be saving. So the more data you give it, it'll be able to tell you what it is. We might be able to demo this, toward the end, or we might just show the platform itself. So now, there's a key instance whereby in so many workplaces, you're not allowed to use AI, but you're allowed to work with AI should you wish, and bring the results, So this might not be the best kind of workflow where in this AI native world that we're all going into. So the best way is to try and foster that environment whereby folk can understand, learn, and understand the technology itself, see how it can your company can take advantage of this. The key thing is education. With education, you then can see exactly what it is and be able to see how you can use this to, collaborate across your whole team. In fact, not just one team, multiple teams, data management, so many absolute use cases for what this is. But the whole idea is if you're going to be looking at the toolkit, how is it going to be that you're going to leverage this to know where the risks are and the rewards? Keith will talk about this, in a bit, but I will take you up to where we can look at just the technical risks. And we mostly know the rewards, but also we'll look at the risk and see how we can mitigate most of them. In terms of navigating and maybe integrating tools, many people would just know Copilot, but there's so much more. You can actually build your own and have it in a better way where you even get rid of things like hallucination. Maybe not 100%, but they work better because you can create systems, with RAG architecture, and to be able to help you to be able to help you have more concise answer and data. So those are things that you'd have to build in. So if you have the normal LLMs, you can still fine tune your own, build your own systems that's fine tuned on the data and make it work for you in a more accurate manner. So because if you use just what they have currently out there, you may not get the results. And that's what brings us to where the difference between Gen AI and traditional AI. If accuracy is essential to you, then you do not need generative AI. Just as the name says, it's general, it's generative. So you don't need generative AI. You need to build more machine learning based architectures so that you're looking at where you're using your linear progression to be able to fine tune it to an acceptable benchmark for you. For instance, if pharmaceutical and you're making drugs, you need to ensure that it's 99.999% where you're accepting that, So, but if you want something that will give you kind of more general starting point, then Gen AI works. But with fine-tuned models, they work even better depending on all the rules that you've placed into them using natural language programming. You've got some frameworks, just to ensure for not just for data, but ethics. Ethics is a big one, like whereby you're scraping data, you could infringe on someone else's copyright, you use someone's product by accident. But all this is kind of changing because people like Microsoft say if you're sued for using their LLM and because you've infringed on the data or you've infringed on someone else's work, Microsoft are suggesting that they will pay the costs, involved in all of this. So there are kind of some things there, but then these frameworks, they're really there just to help to make sure that things work in order. But the organizations are now recognizing this and wanting to go a step more to ensure that they're fair or fairer across the board. Yeah. So what's the cost, and the tools that you could use. Like I said, if you if you came to our platform, there's about 18,000 tools that we have as on our platform, whereby you find all these tools, but you still need to be able to see how you can use them in ways that would help you better in terms of your work objectives, your business objectives. So choosing the right one is key. Working with people who can help you build the right ones, depending on your use cases, are really, really key. So but a lot of people associate costs with building your own. Obviously, if you're doing something, say for instance, you're getting furniture from IKEA, it's not the same as you're getting furniture from a bespoke supplier, because the use cases are different. So you may get something that is more robust and has value, because in future you want the value of this furniture to go up. You want to be able to pass it down as heirloom to your children. So that's your reason to spend more on that. But whereas if you get an IKEA product, you know that it will do the job as it is, but it may not last. It just has different capacities and capabilities. So what organizations do is to conduct pilots to assess the tools in real environments to determine effectiveness of what they actually do. There are some costs, that when I say like obvious, which is the actual LLMs themselves. You pay subscription. Some of them are affordable, some of them are really astronomical, but some of them are absolute free. Models such as DeepSeek are the ones whereby you can look into, and it's completely free. But like they say, the only cheese that's free is the cheese you have in the mousetrap. So they all come with things because it's a business model. So the other thing, cost that you might think of is cost of adapting. Do you have to change your systems? Do you have to hire maybe an actual AI? An AI, which is an augmented individual, could be somebody who you bring into your organization specifically so that he can be the AI trainer or AI overseer of everything. It's not just having an IT person. That's not enough. You need this augmented individual. He's going to come in specifically with this ecosystem to look after your organization. So it's something worth looking at. Either that, or you get an external person who can build you things and look after your business. Another cost that may be associated in this is a cost of detecting and fixing errors. And how critical are the errors? For instance, you can ask questions. You can ask, say, maybe questions of what I would call they're relaxed questions. They're strict rules questions, and there are really, really strict ones. For instance, if you're looking at doing like medicals and things that involves that deal with human lives or at risk, so you have to be careful the output. So for instance, if you want to write, you say you want to use an LLM for to help you generate a story or an email or a copy for your digital marketing, that's a relaxed rule, because you'll be able to fix it with not too much of a problem. It's slightly different from like if it's a strict rule. For instance, so the accuracy for relaxed rule, it's different from strict rule. And strict rule doesn't mean something like overly serious. It's just accuracy is, where you have to have stricter accuracy. For something as simple as maybe saying, what's the capital of Paris? So this is a strict query. There is no two ways about it. You've got to get exactly what you want. So these are ways you find yourself and see which of these your company aligned with, or how your company's entity is. It will be one of the things to shape how you adopt and use these LLMs. Because if it's relaxed, you're pretty much carried into the industry. But if it's stricter, you need to show more care and integrating into all the stuff. So again, in your organization, the culture, which is called AI native, the culture of the team understanding the power, the use cases of AI and being educated, so in a way that they can feel empowered to share their knowledge. In most cases, in most companies, the employees are the ones testing and using these models, so they pretty much know more than the management. So, but this should not be a thing that pushes management away. Management should encourage this, involve real after education, open chat, and dialogue to dig into how this will transform their companies and also be able to allow them to see the benefits. One of the things I predict for 2025 will be the rise of BYO AI, whereby like previously, if history to repeat itself, we had BYOD, which is bring your own devices. Soon, I predict it will be bring your own AI, because then these are the tools that you've been working with. You've tried and tested them over time. And one of the things about these models is if you look at social media, the main currency there is attention. Whereas with the AI, the main currency is integrity. So integrity is key, where you've tried, tested, the people who are producing the product and their evals, their values of what, how they see. You can align with their core values and things like that. But also the training for your team, it's not just something you do the once and forget about it. The landscape changes so much, so it's a continuous job to keep up, to harness the full potentials. So it may be costly, but I think it's worth looking into and then using your AI ROI to check your return on investment, But in this step, we recommend like three step approach, where, as I said previously, you break the workflow and jobs into tasks as you would anything. So in each of the bite-sized iterations, you can in that pipeline build systems around that and iterate till you get to the full chain, and then you can output. Something else that you need to do is to see if it satisfies the Gen AI cost equation. If it's too expensive, then either you're doing it wrong or it's not worth it for your company. The third thing you do is to build, launch strongly, and evaluate the pilots. You must go gentle. But Keith is going to come on shortly and do a little demo. I'm aware that we've got only about 20 minutes more, and I'll rattle through this. But again, empowering your employees to be able to take the initiatives, safety audits, and it's crucial. The whole team has to come in, and whereby we're helping each other to be able to adopt this, and be part of the team fully. Okay. So how do you manage risks? This is crucial, but first of all, is identification. You have to understand where there are going to be failures in any of this and look to allocate resources effectively. So for instance, like reputational damage, what if you generate content and you put it out and it turns out to be fake or incorrect? Can your company's reputation or liability, handle this fallout? So these are the kind of things you need to be thinking about, and conduct regular audits and look for systems whereby you can see easy transparency. So like I said, integrity and transparency are key things in your adoption of the models. Again, ethics, ethics, ethics. You've got to be fair. You've got to respect people's data. You've got to be transparent. So the trust, among stakeholders and your clients as well is key. So in Asimov's three laws of robotics, I suggest that there's a fourth one, which is to actually identify yourself as a robot first. So with AI, so if you were to use AI, you would say this has been generated by AI, or this has been done 20, 30, 40, 50% by AI, so that people understand and share your transparency. And your path to integration is to adapt, evaluate, launch, and monitor, and Lego brick. Add more layers as you go incrementally. Are the things we would suggest for you. Okay. So we've talked about ROIs and how you measure this thing is really by the distance of how big the difference is in what your new implementations. And you have companies like Google, Amazon, even local governments and even small businesses are really hunking down and working this properly. Long-term benefits, loads. Like I said, this is not going away, so it's going to be there. And but the key benefit will be like it'll help you adapt quickly, to all the changes that are coming up, in the future. So it gives you that insight. You can see further, better than the companies who may not be using AI. Okay, so this brings us to AI guru. If you've heard Keith talk before, he knows his stuff. He's a product launcher, and he's one of our trusted people here who does a lot of work, not just with us, but also with universities, businesses, big and small. And his models are consistently, challenging, if not better than the like models that you have out there. So Keith, how you doing?
Fantastic, fantastic.
Yep,
Uh,
excellent. Are you ready?
thank you for the introduction. Absolutely, and don't want to take too much of your guys' time here. As Pete was saying, I'm Keith Copeland. I'm the director at Rock River Research. I used to work at the University of Edinburgh, managing their uh, other outward-facing software company. I have a history of machine learning uh, and a couple of startups. So today I kind of want to go through with you just a little bit about the frameworks that you can utilize on top of the models. The models have become the commodity. They're ever growing, they're ever capable, and also getting cheaper. But you're starting to see these frameworks, these larger applications that start to bring better reasoning capabilities. A lot of them currently are focused on coding. But my breadth of research has really been in how to bring a more general level of intelligence to enterprises on top of their proprietary data. When I used to work for the University of Edinburgh, I quickly caught on to the true capabilities of these applications. And I initially developed a desktop application just for myself to really learn how these ChatGPT worked as an interface, as an application on top of the model. I built a desktop application that I ended up giving to the university. Eventually I'm in selling, which became what they call ELM, Edinburgh Language Model. It's a full-fledged application that sits on top of the university. It's private, which allows researchers, students, and staff to really make use of the best of these applications while not just sticking to a specific model. And with that, I noticed that RAG, retrieval augmented generation, was not enough. As Pete was saying, hallucinations are a true thing with these applications. They are generative, and sometimes they can go off in the generation of the text generation that you want them to have. And that lack of precision is why you really haven't seen a lot of the true scaling and opportunity for which these, especially these new reasoning models, can produce. So here at Rock River Research, and we're blessed to have my my intern Alexander on. I want to showcase what we've developed. We've pioneered on how to make use of knowledge graphs, how to extract not just relevant information, but the facts that are required to then be able to respond to those real precise questions that you want to be able to uh, really have from a business perspective. 80% just isn't good enough. 95% isn't good enough. Some of our use cases are in the legal world where you need to be able to verify and reference how you got to those answers. So I'm going to share my screen here, and I'm going to show what we call Pearl. It's an intelligent knowledge graph algorithm, both extraction. It's able to both understand information and create its own knowledge base in what's called a knowledge graph. But then we have the ability for it to propagate through that graph, which is very unique to see, which means it can start within that graph and gather information on its own, recognizing relevance, saving information to its memory, and progressing in an agentic fashion until it recognizes that it's completed your problem. So let me share my screen here, and we could just take these last couple minutes. And this is really just the future of enterprise applications. With this type of application, you bring your business process, you bring your wealth of information. One client just loaded 3,000 proposal documents on there, kind of put in their 3 different user types that need to produce proposals. So they receive an RFP, they have a wealth of past information, and usually you need an individual to have read through those past 3,000 documents to know what to use, how to use it to build the next proposal. Well, these models are getting good enough. Again, the model is the commodity. So let me click and share here, and we can make sure this goes fast. So this is just a section of our application. So what you're going to see here is a new type of interface that's built around, again, what I call what is called a knowledge graph. So just as an example here, we'll see that I'm going to load a prior chat, and for these chats, you'll see that there's a little bit more information than you're probably used to seeing. There still is that final response, but you'll see this 1 to 11 up here, which means it took 11 iterations to do its research to come to that conclusion. And what you're looking at is what's called a knowledge graph. Our application at the start needs to understand who are the users that use this application, because each of those agents are going to read through every application and extract a wealth of information that is relevant for that. So this may seem inundating, but within each of these, for this set of information, and these are my research documents. So large language model is a relevant fact, but within there are so many other connected pieces of information of relevance that are across multiple documents. So within this, I call it a collection. There are 100 documents of information, which it read through each one, which this graph amalgamates into one. And now it can use that to gather and store information to be able to reference that. This is beyond just gathering relevant information. This is strictly factual, which really does a unique thing when it comes to hallucinations. A couple of our use cases, as I said, are in legal, where we have helped some law firms produce closing statements. And this has done the medical research, which I could show you as an example, through 6 or 7 medical documents with an understanding of context, with understanding what it needs to prove. And it's gone through and made proof 1, which validated proof 2, which showed cause and effect for proof 3, for which validated the closing statement. So this type of application is a new application of these large language models. So just as an example, we'll see here that in step 1, it recognizes that there are some important information. It decides what information to store in its own memory. And out of those, it decided to store 20 out of 104 things it saw. And then we'll just quickly kind of go through and we'll see that it progresses through this graph on its own. Step 2, it decided some other information, and it just does this automatically. These models have a very unique capability within them, but I don't rely on their training information as on its output. The secret sauce is really giving it unique information at different steps throughout the process, the processing process behind the scenes, but it really does alleviate the opportunity for it to go off on a tangent. If it has a graph within there to be able to reference, and it just progresses through this. This is, again, a new type of interface here, but this is kind of what we see at Rock River to being the application to have scalable intelligence. Right now, everybody probably has AI in 10 different applications in their finance, in their procurement. I'd say 24 months down the line, there's going to be a recognition that that doesn't provide the true scalability. What you want is something where you can almost come in and put each of your different users. You guys know exactly what they do, and why they do it. Those, as Pete was saying, inputs to outputs are really where these models start to shine. So if in the job description we put it in here, you'll see that you'll be able to start having it do its research to be able to create your proposals, do that financial research. We have a client who does mergers and acquisitions. They get hundreds of documents put into one directory, and this can go through Excel documents, PDFs, Word documents, extract the relevant information, and then it can start to ask the questions. Or you can work with it, with this type of application to be able to really get, find those nuanced facts. I don't want to take too much time. I think we have 5 minutes here. So again, this is just a version of the type of next level applications that are going to allow for beyond just ChatGPT, but a level of scalability and intelligence where you don't have to have somebody sitting in the seat to be productive. This can do 10 or 12 or more operations of users if you know what you really needed to do over the specific information that you need to. So I think I'll end there. I don't want to take too much time, and I want to leave time for discussions. But this is just an iteration on how you can really get that next level of opportunity from these models beyond just the basic chat bots that ChatGPT and Anthropic are offering you.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you so much for that. Am I muted? Hey, Rajiv. Okay.
That was fantastic. I mean, we're using AI applications everywhere. Like he just said, we've probably got some elements of it pretty much everywhere, right? Even just analytics gives us insights based on what it sees. And this, just the graph visualization, is something I haven't seen before personally. So that was interesting. So I think I'm going to do a little research myself after this.
No,
so
absolutely.
let me just let me just take another second. Say thank you both. Thank you all for joining us, and we'll wait to see if we have any questions from the chat. I don't think anything's come up yet.
Okay.
But I'm going to allow everyone to unmute. So if you want to raise your hands and ask a question or post it in the chat, you're welcome to do so. We have a few minutes, but we could probably go over by a couple.
A couple minutes, yeah.
Make sure that we've got a discussion. Okay. Yes, welcome.
I don't know who are the who are the people that are supposed to be in this Zoom. I'm a novice. I don't know anything about all this artificial intelligence, but it's really fascinating, and I'm glad that I've attended it. I don't know. I just started jotting some things that I ran a group of women's group here and young people, and I'm just putting out some things that maybe we should build on it using the AI this thing. So ideas are already running in my head. And so thank you for presenting it. I'm interested in knowing, I'm an old person, retiring, or retired. There are things that the AI will help with our thinking and what we want to do. So thank you very much for this exciting presentation.
Absolutely. Hi, Bertha, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah, so this is the industry version. Next week is the next week's one is the one where is more explanation of, just how it really works under the hood. So this is a high level overview how businesses can, or you run an organization, I know you say you're retiring, but you have people who you have things. So like what Keith was saying is you can plug in, say for instance, how you've bid for funding previously in your charity. You can input all of these to give out a better output of what you can be using for the next time. A lot easier, really more nuance into all this. So the orchestration, what keeps showing that orchestration is where, so currently I think folk use the LLMs kind of the way you would have Einstein and you using Einstein, the greatest mind ever to mark the papers for primary school children. There is so much more. So that's it. So but for what it is, we can look at use cases and see what your operation is and really look to give you optimal outputs, whereby, again, you're saving scalability, scaling time, and also really have a system that you can go back to, time and time again. Yeah.
And
Keith,
I'll add on to that. Before I left the University of Edinburgh, the problem that I specifically saw was the knowledge expert problem, that all these businesses are reliant on individuals that over time gain a level of expertise that is outside the database, that is stored in their head based on reading a lot of documents. So as I started to recognize the breadth of capabilities within within these large language models, it was how to develop a framework that allows for it to build and store a memory of information that's not just relevant snippets of text from a document, but is the amalgamation of information that it needs to store to make better decisions. So so what I showed is just an example, but as you will see probably in next week, that there's an infinite number of these. And then the breadth of it to me is to start with an already existing output, something you do currently. So therefore, you can use it as a starting point to always make sure that the output is correct. And once you get one use case, what I say to the clients is, let's start with one and eventually we'll get to 5, but let's make sure the first one knocks it out the park. That it replicates exactly what you're doing now, and I mean it does it consistently, and then you can start to do grander and more significant things on a roadmap.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, my takeaway from this was today the applications that we use essentially we say, look, I need an idea of how to do something, and it just gives you a set of ideas, some text. You look at that and you say, okay, this works, this is better than what it was before. But just the thought process behind what you've just demonstrated, right? It's like asking someone, instead of just asking someone who's got experience in something, who's an expert, like say a subject matter expert, for what's the answer to this, and saying, look, this is how you think about it, this is how you get there, and this is how I arrived at this output. And that way, even the visualization that it's shown you makes sense as an individual. So that's my takeaway. So, yes, Victoria.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to ask Keith, the model you demonstrated, is it an artificial neural network?
No, so behind the scenes, I've developed a method that you feed my application the information, and using proprietary language models, you can't use open source. It reads every line and it extracts facts. It extracts information that is relevant to the job role for which it's tasked with. So that's one thing that is paramount to me, is that right now the market's telling you there's one general summary for everything. If you use RAG, it just works. The same information that an executive needs, the same information an engineer needs, the same information a marketer needs, which is incorrect. They could read the same document, but they store different information for different purposes. So my application, I like to joke, it's 24 to 36 months ahead of what the market's going to even tell you is possible, because this gets you to the point where it's a whole new data layer of information. So it's not it's not a machine learning. It's extracting the facts. It's making use of a really specific capability, just the reasoning capability within these models. To me, they're trained to be intelligent. They aren't trained to always output facts.
What's the
But I'm
foundation of it? That's what I want to know. What is your foundation? Are you not letting that one out yet?
Yeah.
so the foundation is a very unique framework behind the scenes that combines really intelligent prompts, significant amount of research and research papers. So I wake up 3 a.m. every morning to find
Yeah.
the next 10 papers that are out there.
You're
And
still talking
just
about the data. I want to know about the machine itself. You're talking
That's
about
what
the
he's talking
data.
about. Yeah, no.
Yeah,
so
is the
so
machine.
there
I want to know the foundation of that machine you're not letting out.
So let's separate a couple things here. In this day and age, the large language model is the commodity. It sits on its own. It just inputs to output. So it's just the complexity of what you inform it to do, both the input and the output can be 10 pages long. So behind the scenes, this framework input a document, it understands its purpose, and behind the scenes, it's outputting data in a output format. It's extracting facts that allows me to both allow you to visualize it in a knowledge graph, which is very unique to most people because they haven't seen them except in if you've gone for a PhD, because that's usually what it takes to produce one of these. You usually need to have somebody with so much knowledge and understanding in the subject that they then sit there and read papers and extract this is factual to this, and this is the relationship. Well, I've developed a method that I like to just say you can have a PhD on your shoulder. These large language models are that capable if you restrict their purpose, their job role, and you know exactly how to inform it. So behind the scenes, there's a large language model, proprietary or open source, and a framework that myself and my intern have developed that extracts the information into a unique database. And then based on your contextual question, it then can start at 1 to n number of places on the graph, which can be one, excuse me, one or n number of documents. And then it propagates through there just like a brain. It starts and then it says, I start in one point, there's 50 around, but of those, 10 are relevant that I need to store to memory, and let me progress through these 3. And then it just propagates until it decides that it has enough information. It's just, I recognize that these models have enough neural capacity to answer its own questions propagating through a graph. My friends like to joke, I may be the reason for Skynet. It's just you have a lot of purpose and capability of these models answering really complex questions over the only data that they have not gotten, which is your proprietary data that's sitting in files, sitting in PDFs and Word documents and CSVs. I've made a method that this thing can read over a CSV and a PDF and reason over both just the same.
Okay, let me be sure I understood what your explanation is. So
Mhm.
you have a machine learning model, which you have trained so much in different domain languages that it can pick up with great efficiency and accuracy. Is that what you're trying to explain?
Correct. So the
Very
machine
good.
learning model it could just be
It's agnostic,
OpenAI's model. It could just be Anthropic's. It's just that commodity I don't have the money to train on my own. But within these models that sit behind ChatGPT and things, those are exceptionally powerful. From a research perspective, they can do the math, they can do the science, they can find the facts, they can validate themselves. It's just building an iterative framework that allows them to question themselves, answer whether or not they're complete, and then know where to go next. I hope that makes sense, but I'm happy to do a demo at any point. Probably packed an hour into 10 minutes there. So
Yeah. Yeah. Is Victoria still there?
Yeah, she is. I'm clapping
Yeah.
to that explanation. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fine. Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, but like it says, it's the model is agnostic, is in that proprietary training and algorithm, pretty much. If for a better word, is what is ours and Keith's, just in that shape or form, using expertise from outside to just hone in on specifics, not the generalized thing that's out there. So
What's your company name, please, if you don't mind?
it's Rock River Research.
Rock River Research, RRR,
Yep.
the triple R.
Correct.
That's a good
Correct.
one.
Good
It's
alliteration.
fantastic.
Yes.
Okay, do we have any more questions from the attendees? Anyone from the audience have any questions? Okay, I don't think there's anything else.
There's a project management person he was on earlier. I don't know if he's still there. You've seen from what Keith showed. Is that something that yeah, I think it's still there. Is there something that might work? I know you're in Canada, logging in, so well done. Is there something that you might be able to look into and speak to, later on?
Oh, is that to me?
No, it's to
Oh.
the EO is his name, Ugbebo Emmanuel.
Emmanuel.
Yeah.
Okay, well, why don't we do this? Can you let's put your contact information in the chat. I'll also be sending an email to the attendees
Okay.
to let them know how to best reach you. So if you can put an email ID or LinkedIn profile in the chat, I'm sure you'll have a few queries coming your way. You'll have a few people
Absolutely.
messaging you to ask about things. Yep. Well, in the meantime, if there's anything else, you can post it in the chat. We have let's say another minute before we sign off.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks to everyone. This has been fantastic, and thanks to Purple Bird and Keith and Darren, who is part of the team. He's been quiet today, but hopefully in the next presentations, he'll be, one of the ones doing his own presentation as well. So thank you guys. This has been fun.
Just need to let you have some limelight.
Sorry, Darren.
I just need to let you have some limelight. I can't steal it all.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, well, once again, thank you guys so much for joining us, and thank you, Pete, and Dan for hosting a brilliant session. It's been an interesting one, and I think even my team at Copeland, we probably will be getting in touch with you because we have this new initiative on education with AI as a supporting element. So we'll probably get in touch with you about that as well once we've got the ball rolling a little further down the road. But in the meantime, if there's anything else, please get in touch. This is Pete Preston. He's from Absolutely AI. We have Keith Copeland. He's just put his LinkedIn profile in the chat. So anyone who wants to get in touch, please get in touch. And don't hesitate. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rajiv. Thank you. Cheers. Bye. Bye.
Cheers. Thanks.
Bye. Cheers, Keith.
Cheers.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Bye for now.